Yo, what's up aliens? AHEE here with another tutorial. So today we're going to go over how to set up your gain staging like Skrillex. And if you haven't seen my last video I posted last week, I dissect Skrillex's Ableton project that he posted up of Moonby Power. And if you haven't seen that, definitely go check it out and then come back and watch this, because a lot of y'all asked how to actually set it up. We went over sort of how he did his gain staging, and a lot of people had questions on how to actually do it. So today we're going to go step by step on how to set it up, and let's get into it. So I'm going to hit Apple T to create a new audio track, and then I'm going to hit Apple G to group that audio, and I'm going to start labeling these. And basically I'm going to be setting up like various groups here, like sort of standard instruments or types of sounds that you'd hear in a EDM style track. And also I'm going to color code this stuff because I like that. And we're going to call this one what do we call it? Melodic. And we're going to create another new one. We're going to call this drop. Apple G that. Drop. And we're going to Apple G that one too. We're going to call that kick and snare. K and S for short. Color code these. I need these colors. I just like these colors. So. And this is how I always do my projects, so stay organized. I'm going to call this, actually going to group it first and call it top drums. And that's sort of going to be like cymbals and just higher spectrum drum samples. And the kick and snare can also sometimes contain a lot more than the kick and snare, but other fills and things. And then you can create other little groups as well. This is sort of just like the basics. Keep on trying to name them before I group them. That one's effects, and then also we're going to have one here called sub, but we're not going to group that. Let me make sure I got all of them. Yeah, okay, cool. So this is sort of typically what my projects look like when I start. And then also sometimes in here I'll have not just audio but like a MIDI track. Same here in the drop section. There we go. Cool. So everything's color coded nicely, and now we're going to get into actually how to route all these things into chains. And we're going to create a new audio track, and we're going to call this basic chain. I normally don't call it these names. This is what Skrillex calls it. And hype chain. And another new audio track called chain group. And we're going to group all those together, Apple G to do that. And I'm just going to label that chains. And we're going to come back to that here in a second, and then we're going to create one more audio track, and we're going to call this pre-master. Okay, great. Now the idea is that we don't want all of these groups to go directly to the master, and the reason why that is that it forces the limiter or any effects that you have on the master to do all the work. And this setting it up like this sort of helps distribute the limiter load over various different limiters, as you'll see when we start applying effects into these different groups. And it also allows like certain elements of your song to be layered, essentially. Sort of like imagine making a cake and then smashing that cake up against like a glass window. The icing, you're going to see more of the icing than the rest of the cake up against that window. Because that's on the top. And that's sort of my analogy for limiting in groups. So here we go. Now into the Skrillexy stuff. So what he does is that he sets these chains to be in. So, you can hear my voice. We actually don't want to have an input on these guys. But we do want to send them. We want to send both of these to that chain group. And I'll explain why here. So basic chain and hype chain are going to the chain group, and the chain group is going to go to the pre-master. And we're going to set all these to in. Well, these ones you can't set to in because we are not sending anything to them. So first of all, we're going to select this melodic group, and instead of sending it to the master here, and if you don't see this, clicking the in and out button over here will show it. And so changing this, and we're going to send this to the basic chain. And so like all these things in here go to this group, and this group goes then to the basic chain, and then the basic chain then goes to the pre-master, and then the pre-master goes to the master. Also pre-master we're going to set in. I'm going to turn off the input for that as well. Cool. And then we're going to set this sub here. We're going to set that to hype chain. And I don't normally do this. This is something Skrillex does, so feel free to experiment with this. But I just wanted to show you all the steps on how to get your routing set up like him. We're going to send the kick and snare to the pre-master. Notice that all his drums were sent to the pre-master directly. So the drums are sitting on top of both the melodic, sub, and drop elements. Drop we're also going to send to basic chain. Cool, and we're going to keep the vocals going to the master, and that's very important. And just ignore this track up here for now. I'm going to get to that quite a bit later. Oh, effects we're also going to send to the pre-master. And again, this is how Skrillex sets up his thing. I can show you also how I set mine up in another video. Okay, and I think that's it for routing. Oh, yeah, turn your hype chain on to in. This is so that way it's listening for things constantly. Like if you have it on off, it's not going to work. If you have it on auto, you'll have to select the record enable. And if you just have it in, that means it's just always listening. And cool, I think that's all correctly. So basically what's happening here is the melodic, drop are both going to the basic chain, and the sub is going to the hype chain, and both of these chains are going to the pre-master, and the effects, drums are also going directly to the pre-master, and then the vocals are going directly to the master. And yes, that's the signal flow. And what's particularly unique about these chains is you want to add effects to them. Particularly, this is my guessing. Skrillex didn't actually show what was on his basic chain or hype chain, but this is me speculating at this point because of what I've heard and also just what makes sense to me. And so here on this basic chain, I would actually put a low cut somewhere between 100 and 200 hertz. I'm going to set it to 120 hertz. And so essentially what this does is that acts as an EQ on the drop and melodic elements. So that way there's no sub in the drop. There's only going to be information above 120 hertz in both your melodic elements and your drop elements. And this is actually pretty intelligent because it allows you to only use one EQ to low cut out all the information, so that way you don't have to go through every individual track, which is what I've done in the past. Go through every individual track that is not your kick or your sub, and cut out all those low frequencies. Also, in the Skrillex videos, I did notice that whenever he had like a melodic element that was being sent directly to the pre-master, he did have extra EQs on there to low cut those things. So we would actually also apply this low cut here to the top drums, because these top drums are going directly to the pre-master. And we don't want cymbals to have that low end rumble. It just no bueno. It will basically cause sub bass phase cancellation, which I'll have to go into in another video. I talk about it all the time when I do classes and whatnot. Okay, also important on here is having a limiter. And I'm going to use the Pro L because this is what I use normally, and it's also what Skrillex uses in his videos. He uses the Pro L2, but I'm going to use the Pro L1. I do have the 2, but not on this side of my computer. Okay, and I basically apply a limiter to each one of these chains, and also the pre-master, and then also I throw on the master as well, which I've already got one there. Cool. And yeah, I think, oh, and I'd put one here on the vocals. Actually, no, I'm not going to put one there on the vocals. And also I put limiters on the actual groups themselves. Actually, it probably doesn't need that way because of how it's set up. Though I like to put a limiter on the snare and kick group, and also the drop group. Melodic group doesn't need it. That's going to the basic chain. So the idea is that those melodic things and also the drop things, they're getting their low cut and being squashed here. And then the sub is the only thing that's going to this hype chain, at least in Skrillex's video. I'm sure other things could be sent to that. And also this is all not set in stone. You can switch all these things and create other groups outside of these groups. I'm just setting all up with the basic ideas. And then so this chain group then limits these two chains together, and then goes to the pre-master, and then the pre-master limits everything going to the chains plus the things like the drums and effects going directly to the pre-master, and then the master limits everything we just mentioned with the vocals on top. Cool. And so that is how you set up the gain staging. And then also here on the limiter, I like to add in a span, which is like a spectrum analyzer. Super useful. It changed my life. Seriously. It's free download by Voxengo. And then also he also has a isotope insight on there. Cool. So what? If y'all like this, please give it a like and please subscribe. I'm going to be trying to do one video a week, so lots of more tutorials. And if you guys have any questions or ideas of what you want to know, please comment below. And also, before I leave real quick, I want to show y'all this seemed to be really popular at the end of the Skrillex video, so I want to share my Ableton racks, which I have for sale up on my Gumroad, which I will provide a link in the description. It's gumroad.com/AHEE, AHEE. And also I make a bunch of music worth checking out under AHEE. But here I want to show y'all just some really useful Ableton racks. So here's like an almond break. And I have this thing called the AHEE's Magic Box with 2 knobs. And so we turn this on and it's just like a really nice way to compress things. And even just adding a little bit of magic just adds more presence. And if you do this a little bit, a lot of times it really adds up, like when you do it like just a little bit on each element, but you can also just smash the heck out of it. And then this knob over here sort of makes it punchier, squishier. Another thing is my Magic Transient Designer, so we're just going to turn it on and listen. That's off, now on. You can really hear that the transients are poking out there, using the attack. It's got the Magic Box built in there, just a little bit, expander and a limiter in there. Cool. And also another thing is vocals, which is, I've got this thing called the AHEE's Singer Vocalizer, also in my Magic Ableton racks. And by the way, it's only $20, so, and it comes with like 20 racks, so it's pretty cool.
And my heart is golden, my feet
so that's dry vocals. Now we're gonna apply
and the time is right now. I'm gonna get free with the music like wow. Can you feel the movement? My goals improvement. And the time is right now.
So you can literally just throw this thing on and it makes vocals sound amazing. And those are the just settings I have them set to. So you can literally just throw that on. Here I want to show an 808 and some of the cool distortion effects that I have in the racks. So just an 808. Also, I made this 808. It's in Futuristic Trap Drums 2. We've got a lot of great 808s and other trap drums in there. That's also on the Gumroad. But check this out. We're going to turn on Phase 808, Neuro Crusher, and Instant Lead Maker. So here we go with Phase. So you can get a lot of really cool sounds out of that. Here we go with the Neuro Crusher. It's going to be loud. If you have sensitive hearing, turn it down. I'll turn it down for you. So that, I've warned you. Anyways. Lots of really cool, interesting sounds out of that. AHEE's Instant Lead Maker. This one actually works really well in Sawtooth Waves, but I'm showing you on 808. It just gives it a lot extra space. We'll turn this. Pretty cool how that changes that. All right. Again, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back next week with another tutorial. Peace, alien.